No. Well, hello. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. I should say, first of all, even though we both happen to work for The Guardian, this is not The Guardian Roadshow. I know you've heard quite a lot from The Guardian all afternoon. So I'm Meg Pickard. I'm actually not a journalist. I'm quite happy to put my hand up and say that. I come from a background in social anthropology, but I happen to work at The Guardian at the moment. And Dan?
And I'm Dan Catt. I'm a programmer who happens to work at The Guardian at the moment. So previously, I was at Flickr. I helped build a kitten-sharing website, so that was kind of fun.
So we're going to be talking to you about some of the things that we've been thinking about, some of the things that we've been sort of discussing internally. We built some projects together, Dan and I. Dan's in technology, I'm in editorial, and we sort of do some interesting things together. And that's really kind of the heart of what we're talking about today. But this is mainly some kind of loosely joined thoughts about the way that people discover things with some examples. Is that about fair?
That's about fair, and I'm going to heckle while you do most of the stuff.
I've got a microphone too, Dan. I can heckle back. So, the first thing I want to talk about is this. I know that the talk was called Robots, Editors, Strangers and Friends, but actually the main way that people have discovered things for years and years and years, or for a really long time, is editors and friends. Editors being the ones with the authority, friends being the ones with the relevance. So editors used to look a lot like this. In fact, some of them still do. Not all of them, but some of them do look a lot like this.
And you can tell he has authority because he has a beard.
He has a beard, so obviously that's the
giveaway.
authority. But an editor's job was to decide on what the agenda of something is, whether something should be commissioned in the first place, what priority it should have. So deciding what goes on the front page, deciding what goes above the masthead, what lives above the fold. And that's just not in the newspaper world. That's also, I would say, the same is true for an editor in the TV world or in radio or anything else. What goes at what point in the story, and how do we make sure that people are consuming something in the right order? How do we introduce people to concepts, to ideas, and to content in the right order? Of course, another way of discovering things is through friends, not these ones, but just friends more generally, word of mouth. I'm not sure whether anybody else has this experience. My mum does this to me constantly, cutting things out of the paper and sending them to me, even though I work at The Guardian. I don't, she does know, it's just she still does it. And when she sends me things like this, the internet is over. I saw this and thought of you. You think, what are you trying to tell me? But anyway, but word of mouth is important. Word of mouth is very personal, it's very relevant. So you've got these sort of two things. You've got what's very authoritative and what's very relevant. And somewhere between the two, we discover what's important for us to read or watch or consume. It's everything from, well, I should definitely go and see that movie because, Barry Norman told me, well, back in the day, Barry Norman said that was the movie that was worth watching this weekend, or because my friend came back from it and said, this is the movie that everybody, that I really enjoyed last weekend. So it's somewhere in between the two. The Pew Internet Survey did a study, and last year in March, they released this thing, which just basically says the public is part of the news process now. Getting news is often an important social act, which I liked partly because it talks about collaboration, it talks about the kind of ways that people are involved in news gathering and news production, but also because it's always been like this. Getting news has always been an important social act. People have always gossiped and shared information and shared ideas and shared discoveries of things, and that's exactly what these women on the train are. 'Twas ever thus. And these days, the technology, the tools have caught up to allow us to feel our friends' impact without them directly sharing with us. So they're not necessarily intentionally sharing information with us. They're not saying, hey, Meg, I saw this and thought of you. They're saying, this is interesting, that's interesting, and so on. And through that, this is the tweeted Times, I can see that this link was shared by a bunch of people who I trust. It was filtered by people whose opinions, whose authority I trust, and by the people who they trust as well. So there's that kind of two stages beyond. I like to think this is friendly stalking. And another way of putting this is like this. I recently visited Barcelona, and as well as looking up where I should go and stay when I'm staying in Barcelona, I discovered that lots of my friends had visited Barcelona as well. So you've got the authority experience, of this is where a particular reviewer says that I should stay when I'm in Barcelona, and then I've got, or I can ask my friend Anna or Dan, and they might be able to tell me their experiences as well. Dan made me put this slide in.
I did. Transmedia, we're just missing the letters on transmediated discovery, mainly because we thought it's a nice phrase that explains how people discover the information from other people and so on and so forth, but more because we wanted to invent a new word that we could hopefully spread out on Twitter to counter transmedia.
So if you could all just tweet that, that would be awesome.
And pretend this is a new thing that means something.
Yeah, transmedia is so 2010. Transmediated discovery is where it's at. I mean, it's half of a joke, but there's a kernel of something there. The kernel of something is actually discovering things through your social experience, discovering things through the media that you consume, not just directly from it. So the act of participating, the act of being involved in a social space gives you clues and ideas about what you might want to consume next.
And I win £20.
You do now. And I like to think of this as a new kind of RSS. It's really social syndication. It's the way that information flows and spreads across a network, RSS, but the different kind. But back to editors. Another thing that editors do incredibly well, or increasingly well, is filter. So having thought about it like this, your friends are filters. And previously, on here, this is where your friends are helping to filter information. We're also seeing now that editors can be filters as well, and not just filters of what to write in the first place, but increasingly editors are curating information, curating the information that is already out there. So here's an example from The Guardian. I know, I'm sorry, I did say we weren't going to talk about The Guardian. This is one example where our Middle East editor looked at all of the different Twitter feeds that were coming out of Libya, or out of Syria, or out of Morocco, and so on, and verified them, figured out which ones were useful information, which ones came with authority, which ones had a genuine background or were affiliated to an actual news organization versus somebody, a bot or a retweet or whatever. So this is the sort of the digest of who you should listen to on Libya. And what's interesting is we're not saying you should listen to The Guardian only. We're saying you can listen to other people. In fact, you should listen to other people because these people know exactly what they're talking about, but we're going to help you to filter that information. Clay Shirky had a great way of saying it. He said, the problem on the internet isn't information overload, it's filter failure. And I think that's something that both your friends and increasingly your editors are helping us to do. They're helping us to be better filters. But they're not the only ones.
They are indeed not the only ones. We decided that we're going to add into this mix, and this isn't a new thing. We're just trying to ourselves define what we think is going on. We also have robots and strangers, in fact, real robots with lasers and stuff like that. So here we go on them. The nice thing about why we talk about robots is you have all these filterings amongst friends and so on and so forth. But if you do that, you end up in just this niche of what everyone else is talking about. So you need to get information from elsewhere. Tumblr do it particularly well, so you're kind of trying to discover new stuff. So using clever algorithms, they go, this is all the really interesting stuff. And ask a question, has anyone been to Rome? Who's been to Rome? You've been to the Vatican City, and there's got a museum in there. In there, it's got a spiral staircase. Has anyone seen that? Yeah, okay. Did you take a photo like this? Yeah, quite a few people took a photo. Now, I know that you took a photo. It's like the magician. I never met you before, but I know that you took this photo. And I know that because someone else also took this photo. And then someone took this photo. Yeah, and someone else took this photo. Maybe they sort of did it in black and white just to make it seem a little bit better. Now, I know that people took this photo because when I search in the Vatican City, the spiral shows up all over the place, and then the next page, and the next page, and the next page. And that's the really great thing that you start to go, I spotted this. If I know this, robots can start to detect this. Algorithms can do it. So when you're uploading a photo to Flickr and you tag it with beach or rock pool or here's a fish or the ocean was nice, and you add geo-information, you're adding to the knowledge where the coastline is. In your individual act, you don't realise you're doing that, but by pooling all this stuff, so we can get robots to be really smart. So what we did when we were at Flickr, we thought, I know we can detect news events. What goes into a news event is something suddenly happening somewhere when nothing particularly happened before, lots of different people sort of like commenting or taking photos or tagging at the same place at the same location. This is brilliant. And there's like 3,500 photos uploaded to Flickr every minute. We've got a huge pool of data. We can solve this as robots, and we did. And what we discovered was weddings. Turned out to be the perfect event. So lots of different people taking photos in the same place. So I'm very proud of the fact that when we were at Yahoo, we used a lot of resources to invent the world's biggest and best and fastest wedding detector. I'm really pleased we managed that. So much resources we ended up having to sell Delicious to a cover device. Anyway, so I'll let you. Do you want to do this one?
So I'm just talking about robots. So another way that robots can be very, very smart, they're very good at filtering information. They're very good at filtering metadata. So in this case, this is Google News. And Google News is not run by robots, though some might say. No, Google News is smart software. And the smart software that they put together helps you to figure out what's important. They figure out what's important by recency, by authority, by down the bottom left there it says recommended. So things that are recommended might be recommended based on your previous searches. So that's using lots and lots of data to put it together to make better recommendations for you or by what your friends are searching for and so on. So that's robots applying an extra layer of sense on top of things. But the trouble is that robots are not always
robots
good.
can be evil.
Robots can be evil. Anyone that's seen Battlestar Galactica, the Cylons, that's all I'm saying to you. You know, that robots, they may look human, they may act human, they may deliver things in a way that an editor would deliver things, but they don't get context. They don't always understand exactly why something's important or what's relevant. And this is, well, this is exactly the problem with robots, is that they don't realise that they've made a mistake, or they don't realise they've put the wrong priority onto something until it's a little bit too late. So one of the things that, the way that I relate this to is to bring a new idea in, which is the idea of strangers, and how strangers can start to change and influence the way that you consume content. Strangers are, well, I like to, we hear a lot about social media, and we hear a lot about, you know, people saying, oh yeah, social media, it's all about making friends on the internet and hanging out and so on. I don't know about you, but mostly I've got enough friends. Mostly social media experiences are about, excuse the ruthless title here, ruthlessly exploiting, leveraging the experience of other people in order to have a better experience for yourself. So in this case, it's how do you tell where the path through the forest is? Because lots of people have been there before. How do I tell whether this book or this book, which book should I buy on Amazon? Well, somebody rated this one, somebody rated that one. This one's rated higher, but on average, so I'll use that one. Who here uses TripAdvisor? Anybody? I use TripAdvisor all the time. I travel a lot and I use TripAdvisor all the time, and I can tell you that when I'm using TripAdvisor to look for a hotel or a guest house or whatever, I am not looking for people to go on holiday with. Thank goodness. I'm looking to basically use their experiences in order to make sure that I have a good night's sleep. I want to step on somebody else's experience. It makes me sound like a horrible person, but you're all doing it. So this is what we're doing. We are figuring out what the best paths to take are by the fact that strangers have been there before us. So strangers can sometimes be more influential, can sometimes be better for us than our friends, because our friends don't necessarily have the same taste that we do, but strangers on aggregate can be quite smart. So looking at something like the BBC and their most popular, you know, this is in the bottom right-hand side of every page, most news sites have got something similar. In fact, most sites have got something similar on on the front page, something that's most popular, most shared, most commented, most watched video and so on, where the number of people doing a particular thing makes it jump in priority order. Or something like this, which is Trends Map. This is what people are talking about on Twitter. This is trending topics on Twitter visualized simply by where the location is. But even if you took the location layer away and looked at just trending topics, you get an interesting idea. You get a good sense of what's on the mind of a place or of a particular community based on frequency of mentions. But we also know that, back to the robots again, robots are dumb because sometimes they reveal what's going on, but what they're actually revealing is a lie. Everyone here familiar enough with Twitter to know about trending topics? Yes? Good. So you've all seen this experience. I know it's a bit small here, but if you search for hump of irrelevance on Flickr, you'll get this slide, which I put up a couple of years ago, which is basically, can I borrow that for a second? I just want to talk through this option. So basically, this is where the topic emerges. This is time running across the bottom. Topic emerges. This is the plateau of indifference, people not really mentioning it very much. It gains new life. The topic gets adopted by strangers, so people start mentioning it. It becomes a trending topic, which suddenly means that people start mentioning that it's a trending topic. And then people start mentioning that they're going, oh, God, can everyone stop talking about Justin Bieber because it's a trending topic, and that's keeping it in the trending topics, which, of course, keeps it in the trending topics, which means that the longer that a trending topic goes on, the more irrelevant the mentions become. And eventually, people stop talking about it because it's boring and irrelevant, the popularity wanes, and eventually it dies off the trending topics completely. But the point I'm trying to make is sometimes just because something appears in the trending topics doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually it's a thing that people are really talking about. What they're talking about is how irrelevant it is, or asking questions.
When you say late surge of relevance here, that's where magazines fit in the whole scale of things. Right. Oh, it's me. Oh, so talking about when we talk about robots, I love this one. Here's the Justin Bieber bot. the thing about Twitter is Justin Bieber's always sort of trending, and then you have the people at Twitter trying to tune it to get him out of the trending topics. Then you have all the users who are mentioning him in many different ways to try to get him back in. It's like, who do the trending topics actually belong to? Who controls the robots? Does it belong to Twitter, or does it belong to all the users? I mean, so there's this fight that goes on as soon as you introduce robots. And the other way around this, I love this next slide. The other way around this is you start to get in danger of who's actually feeding the robots, or are you like,
or why are you feeding the robots? In other words, are you writing for robots or readers? Are you trying to feed robots or readers?
So we come from The Guardian, so you have to excuse a second. The Daily Mail has this right down. Okay, so it has all the link bait and it puts everything in the titles, and it follows those hits, and it does a really good job of it. We might not agree with it, but the Daily Mail has it sorted.
Brilliantly ruthless.
But the Telegraph, bless them. Okay, so we have a man catches carp on the way to Kylie Minogue.
There is no other mention of Kylie Minogue in this entire article.
They are trying. They're doing really well.
The carp weighed 94 pounds, which happens to be the weight of Kylie Minogue. And so, therefore, it's the weight of Kylie Minogue, which, of course, so they ran with it. They said...
But this is written for robots.
Yeah, it's written for SEO.
Yeah, that's not... But just in case you think we're taking it back, this is other... They go on to other celebrities.
They made a whole gallery.
This pike here is the weight of Jedward.
And it went on, and then there was, and this one is the weight of Girls Aloud plus Sugar Babes, current lineup. You just think.
so bless them for doing that.
So what we're saying here is that even though you might be thinking that you might pretend that you're writing for humans, but actually editors sometimes are writing for robots instead. They're writing for things to be discovered by Google's algorithm or by another search engine's algorithm. This is by way of illustration that sometimes things can be gamed. The idea of trying to game a robot, basically. So the example here is some sites have comments on them. Sites that have comments on them sometimes have recommendations on those comments. Sometimes you can order the comments by the number of recommendations that a comment receives. So you can look at it with things with the most recommendations and so on down the line. But the trouble is that as soon as you institute that kind of behaviour, as soon as you put that into your system, you are starting to incentivize the wrong kind of behaviour, because you're starting to encourage people to game things. You're encouraging people to get more recommendations. So even though the activity is exactly the same, the kind of incentive that you're giving them is, we'll give more priority to things that happen to have a bigger number left next to them rather than things that have got. So it's about quantity rather than quality. And so people gaming the robots, people trying to find ways to work around systems that have been put in place, which are actually supposed to be about highlighting quality, end up highlighting quantity instead.
Yeah, so you have all these likes that are going on, and we're not saying that robots are a bad idea and that robots can work well with people. It's just
we love robots.
Yeah, if you set it up wrong, so there's all this talk about gamification. When we're at Flickr, we set it up really badly. We have this thing called Explore that shows the top 500 photos per day and so on and so forth. And people very quickly latched on that was a high score table. And then this behaviour went on, I'll favourite your picture if you favourite my picture, and I'll leave a comment that has a glittery GIF on it. And then suddenly you end up with these photos with a gazillion mad things saying, this is the best photo ever in the whole world, and it's glittery type of thing. And the trouble is, we're having the leaderboard, we create that behaviour, and then new users come in and they see that behaviour and go, oh, that's how people act on Flickr. They stick funny little GIFs on other people's photos. And then more people come, and you end up with a third generation of people who don't know the origin of why you do that, but they just see and they carry on. So we really messed up with that. And the reason why is because we started keeping a tally on pictures. It wasn't the action that people were taking, it was the fact that they had marked another one and another one. Robots work well when you measure the interactions. So we thought, we'll get rid of Explore, hasn't happened yet. We'll invent this thing where the activity on the user's site currently, someone's commented on something, will create a constant update, a flow of photos. So as people like things, then this flow will go across the screen. So we can say, this is what's happening at the moment that people are currently finding interesting. Now, the problem, we loved it. It was great. It worked really well. The algorithms are really good. The problem we had is, eventually, someone will like a penis. That's just the way it is. And
people like penises, what can you say? I mean, that's
Yeah.
And they like pictures of them even more. So.
Out of all the things I've said, it's going to be everyone likes a penis.
Yes, they're going to tweet that. Okay, yes.
So what we did instead, so the lawyers didn't like that. They said you can't have that. So in the end, we set up the magical rainbow vomiting panda that's on Flickr/Explore/Panda that instead spews out all these photos. And then the lawyers were absolutely fine with that. Because
so that was okay to have penises
that was
on
okay, yeah. So the lawyers don't like flowing penises. I mean, I'm as surprised as you are.
But they don't mind vomiting penises.
But they don't mind. So here's my advice to you. If you ever need to get content out and pass lawyers, if you want to have like the injunction sneezing aardvark or something, get a mystical animal. So this was our answer to that. We still haven't got flowing photos because of Flixsite. We haven't managed it yet, but you can get robots and people doing things badly, or you can get them working really quite well. So you have to decide carefully. Don't necessarily always gamify. This is, you won't be able to read this from here, but this is one of my favorite quotes at the moment by Henri. That's my best French accent. And he's a philosopher who talks about the city a lot. He analyzes the city. How do people use spaces, society spaces, how do they grow them? And he's saying that to really understand a city, to get a sense of the rhythm of the city, you have to be in the city. You have to love the city, have a passion for the city, the rhythms, the coffee in the morning, the small rituals, what you do at lunchtime. And then you need to be really inside the city to have an understanding of it. And cities are just like data. Cities are like, we're now dealing with a huge amount of data. But he's saying to be able to really cope with the city, to be in there and to live it, then to actually be able to analyze it, you need to be able to step back out of the city again and observe it from outside. So you kind of have this inside-outside thing. And I think that we'll come back. There's a bit about grasping fleeting objects, but we'll come back to that in a second. The thing that worries me at the moment, and we see it quite a lot, is these adverts that started appearing saying, for our company, we need a data scientist, which sounds really good. It's like we can now deal with big data. We couldn't before. Like if you have a programmer used to live with for loops, sorting things from databases and maybe a quick search. Now you start to see these things called MapReduce and Hadoop that allow people to chuck in a huge amount of data and then get stuff back out of it. And programmers love this. But the problem is, these people are great. I put this up because they look a bit funny, but these scientists are doing great stuff. So they're advertising for data scientists. The problem, we don't need data scientists. We need explorers or creators. So if you go on to the next slide. So the problem with the data scientists is they're programmers who can now deal with things. They don't necessarily live in the data. They don't understand it. So they're trying to get the balance right. I'll let you.
But they can stand at the same time. So the interesting thing about these kind of people is that they're able to stand kind of both inside the city and outside the city at the same time, as this philosopher said. Or, I mean, from an anthropological perspective, you call that participant observation. It's an ability to be within a community, but also to have an analytical brain on what's going on. So you're sort of looking at it from outside while you're sitting inside it. And what we were trying to sort of find a good example of that, or a good metaphor for that. And the best example I could come up with at slightly jet-lagged notice was this guy. It's Graham Bell. He's an 8 times Olympic skier, representative of Great Britain, really, really big in the 80s, possibly 90s, I think, with his brother. And he now presents Ski Sunday. And so he's a commentator, and he talks about all the things that people are doing in giant slalom and going down hills and all of that. But he is actually a skier, so he knows what the feeling of the mogul under the ski is like. He knows what the strain on your muscles is like. He is able to understand. So he's got both experience and context and analytical skills. So he's able to use his skills as a commentator and his experience as an actual skier to be able to tell quite a compelling story. And in the data kind of analysis world, or in data journalism world, I know that we were talking about that before. In fact, one of the previous speakers said context can be key with data projects. Absolutely. Context is king with data projects. The idea of being able to just look at some numbers and say the numbers are the story. No, the numbers help to tell the story, but they need to be wrapped into the experience of everything else that's going on.
In the case of data journalism and journalism, what I'm saying is you can't just throw a programmer at huge amounts of data just because they have the tools to be able to discover it. You need to have a journalist who understands it. So when you say journalism, you can't just have a journalist who lives within the city. They need to have the skills to be able to step out and understand the data. And this is where this narrow new field is sort of coming in other places. But to find those people are tough because journalists are like, do I need to learn programming? And programmers are like, yeah, I can do it. I don't need to understand journalism. I can just do the numbers.
But you need a chimera. You need someone who lives between the two.
Do you want to introduce?
So this is Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist, everybody Zeitgeist. This is guardian.co.uk/Zeitgeist, which is a social attention engine that Dan and I conceived and built over the last couple of years. And basically it looks at what is most interesting on the Guardian site at a particular time. And it looks at an enormous amount of different bits of data, including social shares, mentions, dwell time on page, repeat visits, all of those different kind of things. But what looks quite simple on the page is actually quite complicated under the bonnet. And trying to figure out what the stories that this data is telling us, that's what's really interesting. So the actual visualization is nice, but what we're trying to figure out is how do we see what the stories are? So to the question before is that we were hearing about in the last session was, how can data help you to see the stories? Well, that's what Dan's been doing.
And this is it. This is what it looks like, the data behind the scenes. It's, so this is what we're talking about, the rhythms of the city. When you look at this, it doesn't make much sense. And as this was a very first attempt to look, here's what people are doing on the site. Okay, but this is much more like it. This is what's happening in the culture section. So you can clearly see there's lots of stuff going on. This is where the rhythms start kicking in.
And just so that the colours represent different sections of our site. So pink is culture, but red is news. So there are certain points where red things and pink things are doing the same thing. So, well, that's kind of interesting. But
so this is trying to live within the city, within the data, and get a feel for how fast does it move, how bumpy is it, how pointy is it nice, soft, round data, is it really hard and rigid data, what do you get? And then you can start, once you start to understand it, you can start to step out of it a little bit more. So this is, over here we have student riots are happening here. We have WikiLeaks happening at the end here. The blue down here is Ireland going bankrupt, I think, essentially. And you start to spot those things in the flow. So if we go back to what... Oh, we don't need to go back, but... Yeah, in fact, we will go back, because I like this one there. So down at the bottom here, in order to grasp this fleeting object, which is not exactly an object, is therefore necessary to situate oneself simultaneously inside and outside. So if we go back to here again, this is where we can finally do it. This is when the BP oil took off. So over on the left-hand side, there's got green environments. There's some green environment stories there. And then you've got green and blue. Blue is business and green is environment. So you can see how those things, you have this kind of mesh of data, and then it suddenly solidifies into a point. It becomes a thing. And it's that point that the robots or the algorithms or the editors need to be able to spot. That's become an object. And then it collapses back down again into its flow of data. So here we can finally see that BP and environment paired together for quite a while, and then they went their own way again, and it sort of goes back into the flow. So.
But it's interesting to mention, so Dan mentioned there that's what editors have been writing about, and that's what the robots are figuring out what people are looking at. But it's the combination of all three of those things, and that's good, because when we originally started out on the project, so about 2 years ago, this is the brief that I gave Dan.
Yeah, a selection of internationally interesting things to read and look at every day, created by guiding editors, readers, and robots.
Like editors decide what to write about, readers vote with their feet or with their mouse clicks and with their eyes, and the robots figure it out and put it in some kind of priority order. So that kind of brings us quite neatly to the point that we've been trying to make all along. So while we've been saying there are ways that editors will be able to decide what a priority order is, what the priority order of a piece of content is, whether to commission something in the first place, how that story should be told, how to format it, how to curate it, and so on. Robots are able to filter and do quite good jobs on filtering metadata and presenting information in ways that can be easily explored. Yeah. Strangers are very good at helping to visualize, helping to bring that stuff to the fore, helping to bring that stuff and make it come to life. But your friends are the ones that really make it relevant and personal to you. So while we might have started out this talk by talking about editors, robots, strangers, and friends, as if you had to choose which one of those methods you were going to use to discover new data or new information on the internet or indeed anywhere else, the truth is, it's all of them. And it's all of them layered on top of each other. The editors are your friends. The robots are acting like friends. Your editor is actually a stranger, but they're acting like a friend. It's all a bit complicated and working together. But that's what the future of discovery looks like. Not instead of, but as well as.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much what we had to say. So I would be delighted if we have any questions or ideas or heckles. This is your time. No? Round of applause. Oh, it's way early. Questions, ideas? Yeah.
Question.
You're going to have to shout.
Or come on. Yep. Okay, the graphs here. So across the bottom here, this is which month is not showing up in this. So this is November 2010. What we do when we're analysing the data is we take in all these different signals of how many people are reading it, how many comments there are, where people are spreading around Facebook, and we give that each article a score. And over time, we go, these are the average peaks for the last 8 weeks for these type of stories. So we get a general feel for how people consume. Well, it's done on an article-by-article basis, but then we extract out the keywords. So we get a feeling for how people normally use our site. So you have news on Mondays, but by the end of the week, people are reading sport a lot more, which is why sports supplements come out at the end of the week. So once you've got a sense for this information... Do they need that back? Okay. Once they got a sense for that information, then we start to spot when things go over that level or when things are trending up faster. So the bottom axis down here, this is normal. At the bottom here, most stories live underneath.
It's a handicap. It's me running 100 metres against Usain Bolt. I mean, I have to use these kind of things. I'm not so geeky, but 100 metres in 10 seconds for me is the best time I'll ever do. So we need to notice that. For him, normal day, not very good. In fact, pretty bad.
So everything coming up over the top of here are things that are doing a lot better than they normally do for that time of day, for that day of the week, and so on and so forth. So then we can start to spot the abnormalities when things come together to create a whole here. So WikiLeaks news was trundling along, doing really well, but WikiLeaks suddenly blew it. It went up here. Business for Ireland is doing, it's doing okay, and then all of a sudden these keywords appear out of nowhere, and then you start to spot those signals. This is showing the very, very top things, the things that are unusual.
It does mean, however, that things need to then perform better later. So the month after the World Cup, football had to really overperform in order to meet the levels that it was hitting, the benchmark that we'd set for it.
To come back down. So as things go up, the very first World Cup thing will do really, really well, and then it settles down, and then goes off again.
Do you share this with the journalists and the editors? Do they
Yes.
Yeah.
So they use this as a tool then?
Yeah, they get a monthly report, and there's also panels that they can drill into to see what's going on and how well things are doing, which they don't.
A lot of them use that
Yeah.
because it's a little easier for them to consume.
Yes, but it's
But it does inform, but not to the extent that you end up with carps with Kylie Minogue. Not sort of go, oh wow, this is really great, or write 20 more things. People consider newspapers are very much about what's happening tomorrow, not tomorrow, yesterday, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. But the thing with the BP oil is, when you have an event happen, then there's a bigger, longer story. Another example is the paedophilia in the Catholic Church and so on and so forth. There might be a new event that happens, but there's this whole history of like 50 years worth of stories that go with it, and can you put it into the bigger context? So we had a lot of stories about the oil leaks and BP, but these are the ones that users found interesting. So if we were to represent this back to users, we'd say, you want to know about that story? Most people found these useful. Out of all the things we published, you probably want to read these 5
This
or
is
6.
this is the pulse of this story, or these are the peaks of this story.
get back to a journalist and say these are the stories
Yes.
you've
Yeah,
written.
that's
And you can start to develop the
so that's what we do. Yeah.
There was an example.
sort of algorithm that says this is what.
Yeah, to go. As an example of that, there was an article that came out that was just about why do men use prostitutes. There was just another Society article that we commissioned, but at the same time, there was another article about in New Orleans, the law had just changed to make prostitution a sex offence. Not the people using prostitutes, but the prostitutes themselves. So if there was another hurricane, they would go into this special shelter that was for sex offenders, so you'd have people who are prostitutes in with rapists. And then that got picked up by the blog sphere, saying this is a really bad thing. But then lots of people went, oh, there's this article about why do men use prostitutes, and there's this article about prostitution. They linked it together. So on Boing Boing, on Metafilter, the usual places in the comments. So our story on The Guardian went around the internet with all these signals coming in. So we could explain to the editor, actually, that story's been picked up. Maybe you want to go back and revisit that story because there's quite a bit of interest in it, or look into it a bit deeper, so we can use it for those purposes.
But picked up not necessarily because of anything that we did, but because of the way that strangers curated, the way that strangers put things together.
A different example is once on the front page of The Guardian, we had a bear who did yoga. But,
Very popular day.
Very,
that was.
very popular that was. But we didn't then go back and say we need another.
Right,
20.
quick, go and train some more bears. I mean, that's not the Daily Mail. No, I'm kidding. They wouldn't do that. Yes, go on. There's a microphone.
Sorry, just a bit of a side point. One of the things I've been thinking about is with your with different newspapers, you have these sections. This kind of tool seems like could tell you quite a lot about what those sections really are about, because they seem to be just kind of, I'm sure years and years ago they came up with these kind of perfect descriptions of what these sections are, but they seem to like be a blur now. And so maybe through this you can actually tell what is the culture section.
Yeah.
What makes culture, what is breaking news, what is arts, that kind of thing. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, that's certainly one of the ways of using this kind of data. I mean, something like Zeitgeist, but also looking at just attention data generally and how it is informing and also falling out of what we're commissioning in the first place. So it's a bit chicken and egg, and I think that's part of the problem with looking at something like Zeitgeist is it's a reflection of what people are doing based on the editorial decisions that we have already made, and it's a way of informing editorial decisions. So we have to make sure that we're looking at it through the right end of
But
the...
it's still robots, so you can't trust them.
Yes, it's still robots, so you still need to have humans, journalists, people with editorial skills and training and so on, interpreting that data and saying, this is an oil story, and this is an oil story that will run and run and run, and even if it never makes it into Zeitgeist, it's still important for us to be telling that story, because actually Zeitgeist talks about the peaks, whereas actually this is much more about a constant rippling curation of a story. So yeah, but in terms of whether we should, what the shape of a section is these days, things like Zeitgeist, anything to do with attention data and so on, can be really helpful in helping us to see what's being consumed, what's being read, and so on. But it's only a partial chunk of it. Yeah. Yes.
Richard Russell from Google. I'm interested to know whether you use any of this kind of thing to guide monetization, or rather funding of the journalism, the editorial and so on. How does that go? Does it guide you? Can it guide you? Is there any insights you get from that actually help fund it?
Do you mean, is there a cash reward if you hit a particular peak?
No,
on
no.
I'm kidding. I'm just, although that's a
more of a general on the business side. You know, I know newspapers tend to have the editorial on one side and business on the other.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested. Does the business look into this kind of thing, and does that help fund editorial? And I guess there's always a risk that you then end up with populism or whatever. But I'm just interested how you use this kind of information to run the business.
I think it's fair to say that any information or any extra contextual information that we can get about the way that people are consuming, sharing, and discovering our content in the first place is incredibly valuable to all bits of the business, to editorial, to technology, because it really helps us to figure out which platforms to support and so on, but also to the business. I don't think there's a direct link between something performing particularly well on Zeitgeist and there being a bell goes off and somebody, or we get to sell some extra ads, or, whatever those kind of things are. But I think we would probably count this generally as an internal levelling up of our knowledge rather than a direct, let's build a thing that we can make money off of. Does that sort of, I mean, I know it's a fudged answer, but then...
I mean, there is certainly the different schools in that the Guardian still tries to keep its voice, so the editorial is quite there. Again, the Daily Mail, which is the Daily Mail online version, is very good at following these things. So if there's even the slightest rumour of like a Sandra Bullock sex tape or something, they'll have not one or two, but they'll have 3 stories about that very thing. So you can use it that way, and they do that very effectively. It just depends on how much you want to do that and where your organisation actually sits. So
we are also, though, monitoring. This isn't the full set of data. We're also, of course, monitoring things like inbound links and search referrals and things that people are looking for when they get to our site, which I believe is pertinent to your interests. The idea that what people are looking for and how they're finding. Now, we know that all news organisations are doing that, but for us, it's part of the mix of things that we will look at, part of the mix of, I guess, another way of putting this is, traditionally a journalist's job, or journalism in general, editorial in general, has been about commissioning a thing, writing it, deciding how to do it, curating it, pressing the launch button and then walking away. And then readers will start to read and respond and share and do all of those other things. So there's this sort of disconnect between the moment that the button is pressed, journalism's job is over. And with The Guardian are saying that's just not the case anymore. We call it mutualisation. I've got whole other presentations that we can do about that some other time. But what we mean there is it's a collaboration before. So what can users do, what can readers do before we publish to help us to understand and better inform the story? But also, how do we keep our eyes on the story after it's actually published? We know that after something is published, after something is launched, that's where it is alive. That's where it gets consumed. That's where it gets paired with other interesting things that are out there in the blogosphere or in Twitter. That's where opinions are formed. That's where all of those things are happening. So there's an opportunity there for us to say, rather than just pressing the button and going, our work here is done, it is on the newsstands or it's on the web, actually, how is this thing living as well as how is it being created?
Which is certainly a mentality that's changing, because it used to be the press deadline every day. but now things are moving more to the web.
How is it doing? How are we going? Should we be pushing it more in this area? Should we be, that?
And often editors go, this is the story you want to follow, and then you find out that actually people are really interested in this other thing over here. So just informing.
Yeah. More information is good.
Big data.
Question right at the back. Nice hat.
That's better. The data supporting the graphs, do you make that available as well?
The plan is at some point to make a measure of the metric available. We can't give the exact numbers, but they're all measured proportionally, so we can say this is twice as good as that. We'll probably put that out at some point.
Probably in the API. We have an excellent API.
Yeah. So the plan is to do that at some point. We just need to cleanse it a little bit first.
Okay, cool.
I think that's pretty much all we have time for. You can find us online if you want to stalk us or ask us further questions. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks very much for your time.